Okay, so I'm going to run through a sample conference. I'm going to try to show you all of these different features that campus conferencing has. So you go to conferences, and we're going to go ahead and add a conference. I'm going to call it sample conference. I'm going to enable recording. I'm going to give it no time limit for Canvas conference training. Now, I have 2 students logged in, test students. They're really just me. I have my wife's computer and my iPad, so I'm only going to invite those 2. But this is ready to go. Like I said, this option can't be changed. It's always, big blue button. So I'm going to update it. So now we're ready to start. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to kind of get it set up. I like the, it's going to ask me to check my mic, how I want to join and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and do my microphone. I'm going to allow it. And you can see I test right there. So I'm speaking a few words. You can't hear it, but I can. So I'm going to go ahead. Yes, I hear. So I'm going to go ahead and get it set up. I'm going to leave the default here. I'm just going to kind of change it to the first blank slide. But I'm going to add a couple of documents. So maybe I'll add numbering systems and logic gates. Logic gates. And normally it runs a little faster than this. I'm running 3 devices on home Wi-Fi, so it's going to be a little slower, but that's okay. And let's say I also want to upload numbering systems. And so I want to start with the blank, so I'm going to show the blank one. I'm going to minimize webcams because I don't want to see anybody's webcams. I'm going to change this to mute all users except the presenter. That way when other users start to join, they'll be muted. I'm going to change my status to happy just because I'm always happy. So this is the chat. I always kind of give them a starting message. The session will start promptly at whatever time and last however long. That way when kids enter, they know exactly what to expect. And then I always hit this right here. It says apply current layout to all viewers. That way when they log in, their screen looks exactly like my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of students into the conferences. So you'll see some students joining here in a minute. And this is usually how it works when I do a study session. So you can see the 2 test students entered. And so they're going to go through there as well. And see, this person has just a speaker, so they're only listening, listen only. And so they won't have access to a microphone. I'll never be able to hear them speak. And that's fine. I usually try to get my kids to all have a microphone. That way I can ask them something and make them answer. But, that's up to you. And so you can see this user right here is already muted. So we can't hear them. Everything's ready to go. They should be able to see the chats that I have up there. And they should be able to see the screen that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And so I usually I ask it and I type it kind of just to give the audio and the visual. Are there any questions? And so let's say this person over here, test student 1, raises their hand. And so what I can do is I can unmute them so that we could hear their question. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and record my session. So I'm going to hit this little recording button up here. Are you sure you want to start recording? Yes. And so now that they have their hand raised, I'm going to be like, okay, we're recording. Test student 1, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so you can answer your question. hard time with and gates. And so now I've heard their question, and so now I'm going to go ahead and attempt to answer it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show logic gates, and I'm going to find where the and logic gates are. And right here, we get to the and logic gate. So I can kind of go ahead and explain it. Here are some key points. I can be, this is the key point for an and gate. Turn on my pencil. It only turns on when both inputs are on. That is the key. That is the key thing. And I can be like, the truth table for that is if there always has to be two inputs. At least, there can be more, but if I have an A input and a B input, they can both be off. One can be off and one can be on. Or they can both be on. The output, I can then ask. I can be like, what would be the output if they were both off? And you can see test student 2. He said off. So I can be like, exactly, it would be off. And so I can keep asking them questions, or I can fill it in myself, however you want to do that, but it's good to get the students collaborating with each other. And so then I can move on to the next slide, and it's kind of verified. And then I can say, now we're going to look at the OR table, and I want you, test student, to draw the truth table for an OR logic gate. So I can make them the presenter. So maybe they make themselves happy because they understood that last question. I can make them the presenter. Now they can take control, and they can do their truth table. And I can just watch, and all the other students can see this as well. And so that's nice because you're getting student collaboration. And at first it is painfully slow because it's hard to draw with your keyboard or your computer. It's easier if you have a USB mouse, a peripheral mouse that you can pull in. But once they're done, you can make yourself the presenter again, and then you can kind of explain what happened. This is great. The only thing that I would do is I would keep it consistent and have your A values go 0011. So maybe switch those two, but your outputs are perfect, and that's what matters. And so I can be great. And so that's a really good feature. You can make them presenters so that they can go. Now that we've kind of talked about those a little bit, I'm like, wait, before we get to the XOR, I want to do a poll. And so I'm going to write it up here. A, an AND gate, or B, an OR gate. And I can ask my question, AND gate or OR gate? I always give them a clue that it's a poll, or I can kind of start my poll. Which requires 2 hot inputs. Start my poll. It's going to be A or B. And so now I wait while they respond. And so both of my students have done. So I can publish those results so that they can see. And they can say, awesome, an AND gate requires 2 hot inputs to be hot. And so we got that right. That makes me happy. And so I can move on to the next question. And let's say that I see a confused status from one of my students and an away status for the other. I can see that test student 2 is away, so I don't need to bother asking them questions, but I can be, what's going on, test student 1? And maybe they don't want to talk this time. They just type it. They say, I'm struggling with something. Oh, they're struggling with the number system. So what I can do is I can pull up the numbering system slide. And you can see how it's kind of hard to see on my screen. You can zoom in and then move your document to wherever you need to. So I can talk about decimal numbers being decimal base 10 or binary numbers being binary base 2. I can zoom back out, whatever we need to do. And so we can then go in and talk about that. So the hand raising, the audio questioning, the chat, the polling, making them presenters, those are all wonderful, wonderful things. A lot of times, if we have a theoretical question, I can unmute everybody and just let them talk to each other. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is just kind of sit back and chill. One last thing I want to show you is, let's say this guy comes back and raises his hand and types to us something like, I need help doing squared in a calculator. And so what I could do is I can actually share my screen with them. I'm like, perfect. So I'm going to show you the share screen. It's right here. Now you do have to be on Safari or Firefox. It does not work on Chrome. I don't know why, honestly. But for some reason, it doesn't work. I don't know, it doesn't support it. So I'm going to hit share your desktop. And this is my presenter preview. This is what I'm shown. This does take a little bit to happen, but it's generally okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I always hit full screen. That way they can just see my entire screen. Because I can actually pull up my calculator and then I can kind of show them some stuff. So again, I apologize for the delay. It's because I'm running all three of these right beside each other. But we'll be able to do the screen share here in a second. So I hit run. And so now I'm sharing my desktop. And so now my students will be able to see whatever's in this window here. That's what they'll be able to see. And so that's pretty nice. And so I'm going to pull up my calculator so that they can see. And I can show them. It's actually very, very simple how to do a squared in your calculator. You just hit whatever number you want, and then there's the little squared button. And hit enter. And so I can share my screen with them, and that is a huge benefit. It is kind of a pain in the butt because it takes so long to load, but if you've got really good internet, it's a pretty cool feature. So I do like the screen share feature. So when you're finished, you can just hit the little X here. You can hit close. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that, close it up. And now we're no longer sharing our desktop. So those are pretty much the only features. I'm going to show you the recording a little bit later, but you could turn on the webcam. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of that. But if for some reason they needed to see you, like, I don't know, maybe if you had a picture of something you wanted to show, you could enable your webcam and start sharing that, and they would be able to see. Like I said, I've never really used a webcam just because I don't want my kids to see me